Joining us now is former Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. Hamish, thanks for joining us here on Sunrise again. First of all, this suggestion that the British police will now question Kate McCann. Normally, how does this happen? I mean, do they have to go through the various sort of Europol channels to get it set up?
Well, that's right. I mean, it's an unusual situation, of course, but this might be a little bit difficult, a little embarrassing for the police, because on one hand, the family liaison officer from the Leicestershire Police have been working with the McCanns, and I'm sure there's been some sort of association, professional, I'm very certain. But to an extent, they might have even become friends, to an extent. You know, they're looking for the British police to liaise with the Portuguese authorities, give them information, that sort of thing. And then, at the same time, the police would be looking at asking questions as a suspect. So I can see that being a little bit embarrassing.
Because one would have assumed that if the Portuguese police had matters of real substance, that they would have the power to actually require the McCanns to return to Portugal.
Well, they're on a sort of bail at the moment, and my understanding is that the McCanns would be happy to go along with the investigation to clear their name. So a time will come, there will be a mechanism to require them to return. I mean, if they didn't, I suppose it would be an extradition process. But I say the McCanns, they want to clear their name, and my understanding is they will go along with the police investigation.
Yeah, I mean, that is the other aspect of this, of course, is they still want to try and find out what has happened to their daughter. Suggestions now that some kind of reconstruction will be staged, which of course we're very used to in this country, but I guess may not be as commonplace in Portugal.
It may not be, and it's after a period of time. It depends how the investigation's going, and maybe leads have come to an end. But again, this is going to raise problems as well, because of all things, people who are the suspects, are the police going to ask the McCanns to return to assist them in the investigation? And indeed, what will happen is that they'll have the reconstruction. It will try and prompt people into thinking, you know, were you there at a particular time? But I do see this being a little bit of a logistical problem and something embarrassment for the authorities.
Yeah, what is the intention then of a reconstruction? What can it actually bring in terms of a benefit? Is it just trying to find out in case they've missed an individual or a movement or something that someone may have seen?
A reconstruction is there just to prompt people's memory, really. Do you remember watching the scene? Were you at this bus stop one day catching a bus and you saw X, Y, Z? It's that sort of thing. In addition to that, and this is something the police do in this country, after a short period of time, maybe a week, they'll have an anniversary and they'll go back to the scene and they'll say to the public, were you here this time last week? That's easier to remember than where you were a week on Thursday. You know, where were you last Sunday morning? What were you doing? Were you here? Prompt your memory. Get some information forward.
The problem seems to be, from all accounts from reports from Portugal and Praia da Luz, that a lot of people there just want to forget about it. That, you know, they don't want the continued speculation and media presence there.
I'm sure, you know, people want to get on with their lives. This has run a number of months now. It must have been an intrusion. Of course, they don't want to be labelled, you know, that this resort, sort of children-friendly, is associated with this sort of abduction inquiry. So, yes, I can see them wanting to move on, but at the same time, the police have their job to do, and they've got to get on and investigate it and look at all avenues, I would say. And the McCanns, of course, want this investigated, and they are still focusing on find Madeleine. Where is she?
Yeah, I mean, that is one hard fact, that she has not been found. A body has not been found, and there have been no reliable sightings of her being seen being taken away from the scene. And I guess that really are the three constants that have run through this. Well,
that's right, and it's in a desperately sad investigation. It's one of the aggravating factors. The fact is we don't know where Madeleine is, so that must be another strand of inquiry. Another part, of course, is what happened to her. What were those events? So that's where the reconstruction comes into it. That's when it comes back to that weekly or monthly anniversary to keep it in the public mind. Keeping the public mind, that's not so important here because the media have done that and it's still there. But it's that crucial thing. Did you see something which at the time you didn't think was relevant, but now it is terribly important.
Jigsaw,
that's right. Yeah. So it's important to do this thing. And the police have got to keep going forward. And there's two things with keeping the investigation going. One, it can identify people, but sometimes, just as crucially, it can eliminate people from an investigation. So those two strands are important. And keep things going. You know, keep an open mind on this and try not to be focused just one way, because you just might be missing the obvious. You never know.